Hey, this is Sanyam Bhutani, and you're listening to Chai Time Data Science, a podcast for data science enthusiasts where I interview practitioners, researchers, and Kagglers about their journey, experience, and talk all things about data science. Welcome to Chai with Amazing Content Creators, CTTS Show. In this episode, I interview the incredible Ken Jee. Ken is a data scientist and an amazing content creator. At the time of recording, Ken's channel has a huge 90,000 number of subscribers. And as I joked towards the initial part of the conversation, I'm sure the number would have gone up by the time this interview goes out. I would highly recommend checking his videos out. These range from a wide variety of topics, and I've really enjoyed watching his content. In this episode, as you might expect, we talk about his journey into sports. Ken is in sports analytics expert, and his journey in analytics along with content creation, how these three tie in together for him, what Ken has learned from creating content and building an amazing community around his channel, around 66 days of data science initiative, which also you can take part in. Please check the show notes for the details. I think there are many interesting reflections from Ken about his journey. One of the best ones is to try to tie in your projects with whatever you're passionate about in any capacity as a starter project and build your skills through there. With that insight and without further ado, here's my interview with Ken Jee. Please enjoy the show. Hi everyone, I am excited to be interviewing someone who has actually, this interview will go out in a few weeks from recording. So I think a couple of 100,000 subscribers, a great content creator, data scientist, Ken Jee. Ken, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Sanyam, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. I've enjoyed our conversations in the past, and I don't think this will be any different.
I learn a lot every time I speak with you, and I'm excited to be learning even more about you this time. I want to start by talking about your journey into sports. I think you first followed your passion into golf. You were an athlete at a competitive level. Can you share your story there? I know you worked on a few projects related to UFC as well. Can you share that?
Yeah, so I honestly, growing up, had no interest in anything other than sports. So I played a lot of baseball. I played golf in high school, and I was recruited to play baseball in college, but I ended up hurting my shoulder. So I ended up playing Division I golf in school. And again, that was my main focus. My grades were not very good through high school and through the beginning of college. But I started to realize as I was playing that there were certain things related to data and analytics that could actually help improve my golf game. So that's when this whole field of analytics, this whole field of data science really started to come into the picture. I got obsessed with trying to improve my performance by analyzing my own data. And it really snowballed, apparently out of control, as we see where I ended up now from there.
In hindsight, would you analyze your games like a data science project, or would you sit down and reflect on the games that didn't go so well or the games that went really well?
So it was mostly looking at where I needed to improve. So in golf, there's four main areas of your performance. So there's driving off the tee, there's your approach shots, there's chipping, and then there's putting. So I'd look at all of those different areas and figure out, okay, where should I spend the most time to get the greatest marginal returns? So if I spend the same amount of time on these two same areas or these two different areas, which one will I improve the most on? And I want to always choose the area where I will improve the most or invest the time where I'll improve the most there. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily like a data scientist. It was more how an economist thinks about things in terms of opportunity cost and marginal return. That's what I studied in college, was economics. And I really only started getting good grades in college once I started taking economics courses, because that really resonated with how I thought. That really made sense with how I approach problems in general. And then I honestly look at data science. I look at a lot of the analytics as an extension of economics. Economics is applied statistics for the most part when trying to understand human behavior.
And in hindsight, how it sounds from a third party perspective, you're already making data driven decisions with your game. At what point did you start calling it data science? At what point did you start working on data science projects?
So I would say that's when I started trying to understand other people's games. So after I played in college, I tried to play professionally a little bit, and it didn't go that great. I had a lot of fun, but I wasn't competitive enough. And I got really interested in daily fantasy sports. So in the States, daily fantasy sports are like normal fantasy sports. You choose a team, but you can actually win money by how your team performs each week. So I was trying to predict how individual players would perform. At the beginning, mostly in golf. I would do it for football and basketball. Honestly, golf is the only one I really had any financial success with, and it wasn't anything crazy. It was a couple bucks here and there. But taking it from my game to trying to understand how to predict other people's performance over time was where I made that leap into the predictive side of things. Early on, when I was understanding my own game, it was almost completely diagnostic. And that's kind of how I view the difference between data analytics and data science, or what a data analyst does and a data scientist does. A data analyst is trying to understand and maybe make recommendations. A data scientist is usually trying to predict what's going to happen rather than just understand what is currently happening.
That's an interesting insight. You also worked on projects in the industry soon after that. How did you make that leap? And if you can share what all projects have you worked on, because I know there's a good overlap there as well.
Yeah, so most of the projects were focused on understanding sports outcomes. I found that learning data science through the lens of sports was the best way for me to get engaged with it. To be completely honest, or especially early on, I didn't love learning the new tools, the new techniques. I didn't love the pure technical side of it. What made it interesting for me was that these are new tools for me to be able to solve these questions or that I have, or to come to really more advanced solutions than other people that I've seen. So data science as a field was more of a means to an end to solve these sports questions for me. I will say I obviously went back. I did my master's in computer science, and that's when I really started being able to apply some of the more advanced technologies to understanding sports. So I was very fortunate that my coursework, a lot of it was project based, and we had a reasonable amount of freedom to choose which projects we worked on. So I did a project on the UFC fights. So I wanted to determine if I could reliably predict who would win a fight if it went to a decision based on the round data. And I ended up getting terrible results. But this was a great learning experience for me because I'm not sure if you're a fan of UFC, but I'm a big fan. I watch a lot of the fights, and the
Okay.
decisions, the judges, the calls that they make are terrible. So there's a reasonable chance that my model wasn't the problem. It's that this system is really inefficient and it's a bad system. It's time for an overhaul. So to me, that's looking at the big picture of the problem and saying, okay, maybe my model didn't perform great, but is that the underlying problem? Is that the underlying question? Maybe the broader thing that comes out of this analysis is that, hey, the UFC should be have a different style of judging, or they should be using something more quantitative to determine the outcomes of the matches, because maybe it's really an unreliable system, which is not what they would want. So I think that projects like that, I also did some stuff for basketball where I was looking at how you classify players, how do you predict outcomes. I think that video is on my YouTube channel. It was a pretty basic regression, but um, a lot of the early projects were for understanding. They're not there. There's some predictive element, but we're using a lot of linear regression to understand what contributes to this outcome. What levers can we pull to actually have an impact? If a decision maker wanted to change something about this process, what's actionable? What can they do to get a more desired outcome for that?
And I think you've shared a lot about this on your channel as well. One of the techniques that I learned the term through your channel was bluff. I can forget the
The
expansion of the
bottom
term,
line up front, yes.
which is to present your results first. And that's also an interesting tangent to me. In one of your videos, I think, or an interview, you had mentioned you should be passionate about the project that you're starting with. And to me, that's also interesting because even though your UFC project wasn't a success and that was one of your first projects, but since you were already passionate about the area, you were able to make or get an understanding beyond the project as well.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. So the first thing about the Bluff, I come originally from economics. My other master's degree is in global business, and I did consulting for a while. So my thought process kind of comes from that direction. Obviously, I made it a very clear effort to adopt the pure technical skills by doing the master's in computer science because I think that frankly, in the technical space, no one really respects the consultant or someone from the business side. So I wanted to make sure that I really check those boxes. But I understand what most recruiting managers are looking for. I understand what people are looking for in a team. And what people don't realize is, yes, the data science manager might be hiring you, but you're going to be working with business stakeholders a lot. You have to speak their language. You have to be able to communicate with them. And a lot of these people, they just want the results first. They want to know what the outcomes are, and if it's relevant, they'll go back and they'll go through the research and they'll go look at the other stuff. And sometimes that's good for you as a data scientist as well, is that if you give them the results and they just accept it, they don't have to
Yeah.
check your work. I mean, you want your work to be good and that stuff, but there are a lot of times isn't that much pushback because they just, they're like, this is the subject area expert, whatever that might be. So yes, I think that there's that's where that little background for the bottom line up front for the storytelling aspect comes from. With the passion side, I know for me, it was really hard to do a great project, really put in good work if I wasn't emotionally invested in the project a little bit. I
Hmm.
think that that really comes through whenever I see a project that someone clearly has had a passion for, that's clearly in line with their interests. It's almost always of higher quality. And some people are capable of really impressive things even without that. I know that I personally was not one of them. And as you mentioned, a level of nuance that anyone can have with these projects, if they have incredible subject area understanding, it goes way beyond what you can have with just kind of skimming the surface level of understanding. So what a lot of people don't realize is that data science by nature, the subject area is really important as well. You make a lot of really stupid and obvious discoveries if you don't understand the subject area. If we're looking at golf or basketball, a perfect example is that the person that shoots more scores more points for the most part in basketball,
Yeah.
right? Someone might be, oh, that's rocket science. It's the most highly correlated. But to anyone that has watched the game, it's like, well, no doubt, right?
Yeah. And uh, that's almost counterintuitive. The bluff technique, we're thrown at resources thrown at us, research papers, otherwise walk you through the process, you get some context, and towards the end, you get the results. And we become trained to follow that trend. And later in the industry, you realize, oh, now you need to explain things in 30 seconds. Go figure.
Yeah, well, that's the difference right when you hop out of academia and into the job market. So you go from a place where you're telling this really long story and getting to the conclusion right into the interview where they want everything as quickly as possible on a one-page resume. They want you to be very clear about the value you add, or about your story and the value you add in a 2-minute pitch where you talk about yourself in the interview. You go from this whole long storytelling approach to this very direct approach where you don't want to waste these other people's time. I mean, I love academia. I think that that's where a lot of the most progressive research gets done, but it's also just not how things get done in business and in practice. And it's really important for people to understand that there is a differentiation there. There is a very clean and decisive break between the academic world and what data science is like in a company.
Totally. Watched almost all of your videos, not just in preparation
You've
of
done
this
your
interview,
homework, you know?
but out of passion as well. In one of your videos, you mentioned how should you approach data science interviews, and what questions should you ask the interviewer. Do you see any differences when someone's resume? I know you do a resume review Monday, I think. Do you see a difference when there's a passion project included, and how do you recommend someone to find a passion project? Some people are just fresh out of college, they don't have any interest outside of this, they're coming from CS degrees. I'm talking a bit about myself, but what advice would you have for someone like me?
So, for example, let's take your story right now, right? You have an incredible podcast. You've met some really incredible people. Your podcast could be transcribed, and you could probably do some text analysis of all of the episodes and see what the common themes are. That's something that is already a part of what you do, and it could forward what you're already doing to make you more effective. There's a clear value add to you from doing that type of analysis. For anyone I actually think that this makes even more sense for people that are not coming from a CS or a pure data science background. I highly recommend taking whatever major you studied and combining that with data science. Let's say I was a health exercise science major. I can take some health exercise science data, which I clearly have shown passion in because that's what I studied in college. And I can make something that ties my data science knowledge with that really clearly together. And that shows to an employer a very clear story about, okay, they were interested in this health exercise science field. They started getting interested in this data science field and they tied those together. And then now maybe he's even more interested in this data science field in applying it to other fields, and he's going more that direction. Rather than just going health exercise science, I'm doing data science projects that are completely different. There's this clear transition point. And one thing I think I brought up in my interview with Tina Huang was that your resume, pretty much your resume and the story you tell, it should be someone should be able to pick up your resume and it should make sense. It should read like a story. They were here, they were here, they were here, and it makes sense why you went down this road. And then once they get to the end, the next logical step is for them to hire you at this company. And so when you think about it like that, it's like, well, what project should I do? If I'm really excited about working at this company, that's a passion project. Let's say I want to work in data science and agriculture. I should find some agriculture data and try to apply data science to it, right?
Totally.
But I also think that every single person is not just one dimensional. If you like playing video games, let's say you like playing League of Legends, there's data associated with that. Let's say you go down a lot of these Reddit rabbit holes and you just really enjoy memes. You like making memes, whatever that might be. You could use a GAN to generate memes or something like that. I would generally recommend trying to make a project that would be useful to other people, not just yourself. And there's a ton of niche communities that you can be a part of where a little machine learning can blow up or go a really long way.
I want to drop a self plug. I've already made the data set for Chai Time available on Kaggle with the transcriptions, everything. And that's for people smarter than me to check it out and give me insights for free. That was my evil goal with it.
I love that. Well, I just did the same thing with the 66 Days of Data Discord. In the little projects tab, I was like, hey guys, this is a fun project. Just scrape all of the text from here and let's try and find some insights from it. I mean, you or I get a tremendous benefit from other people doing that type of analysis, and they get a project out of it. And if something good comes out of it, you can guarantee that I will share it. And if something good comes out of your data, I guarantee you'll share it. So it's a win-win for everyone there, right?
Absolutely. And I think when you're creating content, there's also a community around it, and they would like to also contribute to that in some extent. At least I'd like to think so.
Of course. Yeah. And I could not welcome it more. I love contributions. I've had just another person reach out asking to be interviewed on my channel. They were a lawyer, and they transition into data science, and they're like, hey, I think my story, since I did this a little later in the game, could really be helpful to other people who are contemplating this decision. And that makes me so happy. It's incredible content. I think it could help people, but it's also just like, hey, we're part of something. We're making, we're bringing people in, and I would love to tell more stories, success stories about people who have come into this field and really one, enjoyed it, but also have had some career success.
So please reach out to Ken on the internet anywhere if you'd like to share your story. Taking a step back, can you tell us how did you get started with content creation in general? I know you have a blog and your YouTube channel as well. How did you decide to get started with these?
So the first step, honestly, was just doing projects in grad school. One of my projects I had to submit via video, and I just put it up on YouTube. It was the easiest way to share it. The file was too big to share through an email. And I didn't think about it, but you can make a normal video, a unlisted video, or a private video. And I just put it up as a normal video. In theory, if I didn't want it to be shared, I would have done it as unlisted or private and shared the link. But I didn't think about it for 3-4 months. And then I look back on my YouTube account, and the video has had a couple hundred, maybe even 1,000 views. And I'm like, oh my goodness, people are interested in this type of stuff. And that video is my first video is still up. It was for my deep learning class. And I
A
think
cryptocurrency project, if I remember correctly.
I compared GRU and LSTM, what are they called? Neurons for predicting cryptocurrency prices. And I think LSTM performed better, but I had hypothesized that GRUs would perform better because they're a little bit more simplistic and they might generalize more effectively. There's obviously some new tools you can use for that analysis now, but regardless, it was also right during that big spike in the crypto phase. So a lot of people were really interested in that type of stuff, and the timing worked out. But I realized two things. One, I enjoyed making the video. I had a lot of fun doing that. Two, there was some traction, right? I had at least some form of audience. I think it was 20 or 30 subscribers. But to me, again, at the time, that was a monumental success. And now it's like I get that many views on every video I post, and it's like
Almost every minute.
Exactly, you get accustomed to it, right? But the last thing that I realized is if I do have a platform, why don't I try and make some videos that I wish I would have had? I was coming in from a non-technical background, from economics and business and consulting. There was no roadmap. There was really no videos out there that I thought would have helped me on that journey. I had the same problems that everyone has, where it's where to start. What should I learn? What does this model do? What does that model do? Is this the right resource? Whatever that might be. And I would hope that my videos help people sort through those problems. So less than being me holding your hand through learning data science, it's more, okay, these are the things I've learned. These are the things that are important to focus on. And what online course you take doesn't really matter. It's you take it and you apply it to projects, for example. And so hopefully those types of things, that making the videos I wish I had is valuable to people. And obviously I enjoy making them. So that's also been a pretty nice plus as well.
You've had the incredible Daniel book on your channel, and I think he had shared an answer, which is you'd want to create videos that you would want to watch, and I think that's been your journey as well with content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one other thing that really pushed me towards making more videos is that, one, you want to work a little bit towards your strengths. I'm comfortable being on the camera. I'm comfortable in this setting. A lot of people aren't. And why wouldn't I leverage that if I can do that? If I was looking for a job, having a video portfolio is something that I think is very powerful in the interview process. Whenever someone calls me up to interview me, whenever someone brings me in for an in-person, it's like they've already spoken to me. They've heard my voice. They know my mannerisms. It's not like we're friends yet, but they have a little bit more familiarity with me than any other candidate for the most part. I also saw this as an awesome opportunity to improve my interpersonal skills. how I've gotten advice well, I've heard of advice of people saying, hey, look at yourself speak in a camera. You
Hmm.
learn a lot about yourself when you have those types of communications. And I was thinking, okay, well, if I do this frequently enough, I might be able to improve how I speak. If I want to, like get more dates, or I want to speak at conferences, or I want to make more friends, or I just want to be better in a social setting, why don't I use this other platform to try and do that? And I also get a ton of other great benefits of being able to help other people, being able to expand my portfolio, being able to, just have a hobby and have some cool stuff that I do in my free time.
Do you remember the date, August 27, 2019?
August 27, 2019.
You had hit 1,000 subscribers, and I think you had done a small celebratory post at that
Oh yeah, I
point.
do remember. Yeah. You know, to be perfectly honest, I think the subscriber numbers are really nice. Um, but if I was making videos for the subscriber numbers, I probably would have burned out really fast.
Yeah.
The things that I remember are the comments, or the where people have said, hey, you helped me land this job, or hey, hey, you were a part of this process, I learned a lot from your videos. Those are the things that mean a lot for me. I'd still make these if I had, if I was back at 1,000 subscribers, or anything like that. I have obviously gotten very fortunate with the algorithm a couple times, and with people being willing to share my work and things like that. But and I'm getting kind of close to that 100,000 mark, which I of course will celebrate. But if you look at those milestones in the scope of just hopefully how many people I've been able to share this experience with, those milestones don't mean that much, right? I mean, of course, again, they're
Yeah.
nice, but what I'm getting a lot of joy out of now, or a lot of um, a really good feeling about, is being able to share the YouTube journey with a lot of people like yourself. I mentioned Tina before, the data professor, um, data leap, import data. Um, you know, when one of my friends succeeds as a content creator, I get just the same amount of good feeling as I get when I succeed. Um, and I love seeing more people create data science content. I think that there's a real need to hear different people's voices, a real need to get different people's perspectives, because I can only fairly share what my experience has been. And my experience isn't always right, frankly. I mean, there's plenty of things I have yet to learn. There's plenty of things that I can definitely improve on. But as long as everyone knows that, hey, Ken is trying to do his best and give the best advice that he can, and there's plenty of other people out there that also have really good advice. And a lot of the times we say some pretty similar stuff, but sometimes we differ a little bit, and that's okay.
There's a lot of kindness and humbleness in that answer. I think the external factors are just a reassurance or a confirmation of the fact that we really enjoy your content and the community really loves your content. What's what's something unexpected that you've gotten out of content creation that you didn't expect, or in hindsight that has made a huge impact on you?
I mean, the biggest thing has been the communities and the people that I've met. I never would have met, pretty much any of these people, yourself included, if I didn't start making, turn on a camera and sit there kind of mumbling for a couple minutes trying to figure out what was going on to begin with. So, that has been one of the best things. I never thought that, I'm not planning on becoming a full-time YouTuber or anything anytime soon, but I never thought that would even be close to an option ever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I love my work in sports analytics. I don't think I would ever stop doing that. But, you know, in a couple months, a couple years, wherever that might be, if I had the option to do content creation or to help people in this sense full time, um, I think that provides a lot of freedom.
Hmm.
Because if you were to ask me, hey, Ken, what is your perfect life, or what would you like to do? I would probably say, hey, I'd like to work on cool projects that I'm fascinated with, and just do as many of them as I can, and kind of focus on them sequentially. And that's effectively what you do if you're producing content. You work on one project, you try and do your best there, and then you kind of move on to the other, and you put it out there in the world for everyone to see. So those are two things, again, people and the whole new world of what a career could be, or what a side hustle could be, or what a passion project could be.
Uh, I don't know how you do it, especially someone of your stature. You reply to every single comment on your videos. Uh, Take us, if you could take us behind the scenes. What does the process of creating a video for you look like? You creating many different videos. I think there are a few series, resume review Mondays. There are a few general advices as well. I know you did a case study as well of the YouTube algorithm, which I really enjoyed. What does the pipeline for you look like? How do you come up with an idea? Is it through the comments? Is it through the community? And what happens after you get the idea?
So I've been producing three different types of content for the most part. So Mondays, I've been doing project and resume reviews. Wednesdays, I've been doing interviews. And Fridays, I've been doing whatever videos that I thought were fun. And the reason I've been doing a lot of the project reviews is, one, I feel like people learn best. Well, actually, the project reviews and the interviews. I think that people learn best from examples, things
Yeah.
that are concrete, seeing, walking in someone else's footsteps. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I recommend Kaggle, why I recommend doing code reviews, why I recommend just, copying people, not plagiarism copying, but copying to learn.
Following the footsteps.
Exactly. As a first step in a lot of your learning, because that's how you understand the patterns. You start to get a feel for everything. And those are also, for me, relatively easy content. They're not things I have to edit a ton. I get to meet incredible people. I get to feel like I'm also helping people. And the videos on Fridays, those are more Ken self-expression. They're things that, again, I would have liked to have seen, or I would have found interesting. I will say that it is, I would like to do more project videos, and I'm planning to, but I think I'll probably have to sacrifice a little bit on some of the interviews and on some of the project reviews for a couple weeks to do that. So I'm trying to figure out what a balance is like there. I have a video, I think Monday, well, it'll have already happened when this comes out, but I'm starting to collaborate. I think I'm going to do a video with Tina where we do just a bunch of resumes at a time, trying to chunk it out, because I've got like 80 in backlog, and I'm trying to get these out to people before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I might have to slow that down. I might have to adjust that. And that's part of the learning process for me. I think I'm starting to reach a size where um, it'll probably start making sense to have some help soon, to be able to navigate and make sure that I can still have a personal touch, because that's something I really enjoy. I mean, you said that I respond to pretty much all the comments. Uh, that, to me, I get 20 comments a day. It takes me, 15, 20 minutes to do it. I sometimes have more, but
Yeah.
the LinkedIn messages are the one that's killer. Oh my goodness. But if I can provide help, that's my goal. My only ask there is that people will do their research, and they won't ask me questions that I very, very clearly answered in at least my most popular videos. I don't think too many people. You might be in the rare club that has watched most of my videos, and I wouldn't expect anyone to do that.
I'm
But
sure there would be more people.
well, hopefully. I'm sure I have a couple duds in there. So if you have any feedback on which ones you like the least, or which ones you like the most, I always welcome that.
I enjoyed almost all of them, although I had this burning question. I'll save it for later. But one thing I realized is you're also experimenting as a videographer. You're also filming yourself. Is that a natural process to you as well? Because I've noticed in some videos you try to switch your backgrounds, or is it just you recording through different times of the day, or are you also trying to experiment in that direction? How do you look at it?
So I set a goal a long time ago, at least for the Friday videos, to try and at least improve one thing each video. So whether it's lighting, or trying a different camera angle, or making an adjustment to the sound, or adding music, or not using music, or adding B-roll, whatever that might be, or adding graphics. And that's something I've worked really hard on to try and improve. Um, Sorry, I had some sparkling water earlier. That was a mistake.
That's why you should have chai all the time.
I know I should have gone with the chai, but so it's fun for me to tinker and try and improve the video as well. I think that's something that differentiates me a little bit from, or it started to differentiate me from a lot of the other creators in the data science space, is that I feel that some of my videos might be just a little bit more, not on the artistic side, but a little bit more maybe dramatic. And I take a lot of pride in that. I think, for example, Krishna does an incredible job, and he posts so many videos.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But, if you're producing that volume, there's no possible way you can edit them all a lot and do things like that. And he doesn't need to. He never messes up. The guy is unbelievable. But, for me, I was like, okay, well, I don't want to make the exact type of videos that Krish makes, or Deval makes, or Data Professor, or, like Joe Matek or Suraj Raval. I have to find my own style. And part of me doing the editing, part of me, working off some scripts or doing some live stuff, is hopefully what makes my content my own and makes my message my own. And when you watch a video, you're like, oh, this is a Ken video, not someone else's video.
Professionally, you'd call it building a brand, but in reality, it's just adding your touch to your content. How do you look for places to improve? Because I think with comments or with any general feedback, there's this bell curve. There are okay comments in the middle, and then there are two extremes: people that are very happy, people that are very upset, and then you need to figure out how to find the feedback. How do you think critically of your content, or how do you look for places to improve yourself?
So there's, I think, a good example. Recently, I've gotten a lot of comments telling me that the audio, the sound, what's it called? Not the background music is too loud, or that people don't like the background music, whatever that might be. And I was like, I don't think it's too loud. I like how it sounds, whatever that might be. Let's ask the audience. So I sent out a poll, and a lot of people said they really like the background music still, but maybe it's a little too loud. A lot of people said that that they thought the background music was fine. They didn't they don't even notice it. I think background music, for example, is very different on different devices through different audio. Some people it's loud, some people it's not. Like when I watch my videos with these headphones, I don't hear any background music at all, like very minimal. But regardless, so I did a poll and I found out that information, and it turns out that the very vocal people who don't like the music are the minority, right? So it's important to do your analysis. I look a lot at my YouTube analytics. I try and understand, okay, where do people watch to? If they're leaving the video at a certain time, is there something I'm doing there? I also watch a lot of YouTube videos myself. I watch a lot from Ali Abdaal. Also, oh my goodness, what are their names? Peter McKinnon. A lot of the film people, to try and understand what they do really well. I've been watching a lot of Casey Neistat recently because he uses motion really well in his videos. And so every video that starts, it's like an action shot. He's walking one way, he's walking another way, whatever that might be. And doing things like that, where you're starting from a not static, your intro is very good. You have the T spinning and whatever. It's something that draws you in. And so I'm always trying to learn from what I see in other people's videos that they've done well. So it's maybe less based on feedback and more based on what I was talking about before, not necessarily copying, but looking at what other people do well and trying to absorb a little bit of that into my process.
I'm sure it will be a lot of fun to bring these inspirations into the space of data science. And I think you'd agree for a fact that most of us are just sitting at a desk and not experimenting as much as we should.
Yeah, I think experimentation is one of the most important things, not just in data science, but in choosing a career. Maybe I might even go as far as saying in life.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, well, one thing that I've talked about this with Jeremy Harris on his podcast, as well as when he came and interviewed on my channel. But there's a stark parallel between the stochastic gradient descent algorithm and how we go about learning or how we go about our lives. So how that algorithm works is basically you're dropping a point on a gradient and you're figuring out where the slope is and you're going down the gradient. But stochastic gradient descent specifically is randomized. So you're dropping it in kind of random places, and then you get, the more places you drop, the better sense you get of what the gradient is and where the local minimum is, and you can start working your way down it. So as we're doing things randomly, we're collecting more and more information, and we can start making better decisions. So if we're thinking about even beginning data science, I think you should start with projects, you should start experimenting, not just to learn the field, but to see if you like it. I think that a lot of people have frankly glorified data science and they think they'll love it, but once they start doing it, they don't really like it. And it's okay, right? There's plenty of other good careers. Data science, just because that's the sexiest job of the 21st century, whatever it is, it doesn't mean that it's for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And so I think part of that process is understanding, one, what you do like, but also what you don't like. I have a lot more fun sometimes with doing EDA and just exploring data than I do with productionizing a lot of models and building pipelines and doing things like that. That's probably kind of common because I think a lot of people think the pipeline stuff is a little bit boring, but I know that about myself, and that's important. I mean, if I'm doing a project and I'm collaborating, I know that, I can find someone else that really enjoys that and they can work on that, and I can work on the areas that I enjoy more, that I'm stronger at. The more we experiment, the more we map out the world, and the better decisions we can make going forward. I used to play a little bit of, I guess, like StarCraft, and if you ever played, the map starts out, very, very black. It's completely black, and as
Yeah.
you explore more, you get to see what the terrain is like. You find out where the other peoples are, and you at least have some understanding of what the terrain is like for when you're attacking later or when you're building out your empire. So the more you experiment, the more the world you see, and the clearer the map is of what you should do next, or where you should go, or what else should be out there. So anyone starting data science or new field, that they're really clueless about where they should go, but that's probably because they haven't experimented enough and they don't see what the next couple steps are, because the experimenting allows you to see just a little bit beyond your current sphere.
That's also like breadth first search rather than depth first search, and then
Exactly.
figuring out where you want to dig into.
Yeah, exactly.
And but from my perspective, it looks like your journey with YouTube and also data science is just a personal extension, because I know I watched your video on which books you really enjoyed and what you took away from them, and all of these answers are also to me just a reflection of how you personally learned through this journey.
Yeah, well, one of my biggest passions outside of data science and sports is personal improvement. I've read a lot of books about how we optimize, how people think, how we go after and attain success. And, those are things that I just find fascinating. And I think that they're generalizable, especially to data science. I think that data science is very similar to just problem solving in general. And I look at our life as like one, not a big problem, but a big open-ended question that we're trying to sift through. And so a lot of these techniques, a lot of these things that I've read are just fun to be able to apply very concretely in my life.
I'm sure. Now that you already have this strong community around YouTube, you have a great viewership, you have a great community. What's next for you? What are your next goals from here for YouTube?
I think the biggest thing for me is to just continue growing a community, hopefully be able to create more resources that are valuable to people. I've started this 66 days of data challenge fairly recently, and that's something that I hope is helping people to create a lot better habits around data science. I mean, data science is not learned in a day, a week, or even a month. Data science is learned over the long term. And if we want to have success, we want to stick to it, we really have to create good habits associated with that. So the 66 days of data is just like it sounds. You learn data science for 66 days straight. But we create habits by doing something every day. So the requirement isn't that we're doing an hour, 2 hours a day. It's that we're doing at least 5 minutes a day. So you can do significantly more than that if you want. But on your very worst day, the worst you can do is 5 minutes. And there's other really important parts of that where we're talking about accountability, right? Letting people know that that you're doing this, and they're helping to urge you on to make sure you're doing it. And we're also talking about sharing our work, which is something that you and I have both stressed quite a bit of how important it is to share your projects and to share your story. So there's a lot of fun, different things tied together with that. I think we've just set up the website fairly recently, which I'm hoping to fill out with a lot more resources, a lot more information to help people go on that journey. Admittedly, I've just been saying what I've been doing every day. I plan to actually do the 66 days of data again, and
Interesting.
maybe do a after I finish it for the first time, of course, and do a more structured. Hey, this is what I recommend doing each day for a beginner, for an intermediate person, for whoever that might be, to learn these paths. So that could be a really fun thing for other creators like yourself to say, hey, this is the Sanyam path, or this is the Tina path, or this is how I would go about that day. There's a ton of options there. I just think it's a fun initiative. And we have so many people, over 2,000 people in the Discord participating, which, again, I'm so grateful for, but I'm also so happy that there's such a strong community. And I'm just so giddy about how awesome people are when they contribute to communities, and how good everyone is being, urging each other on, stuff like that.
And I think this is based off, and you mentioned your favorite books on your resume as well. That's one thing I discovered. I think this based on the book Atomic Habits. You form habits long term by focusing on small targets. 66 Days of Data Science is also community, like you mentioned. I think there's a link to join Discord. I'm not sure how Discord works, but I'll have the links to the relevant communities in the show notes for anyone.
Also, yeah, I'll definitely send those over.
So if you had to give, and this is a repeat question on the podcast, if you had to give one best advice to someone who's just starting their journey, what would that be?
So I get this one a lot,
I'm
and
sure.
I always change my answers. So I think the most practical advice is to just get started somewhere. So people think that there's a correct process for learning data science. If you look at the field as a whole, everyone is coming from different backgrounds. Some people are coming from statistics. Some people are coming from really far on the software engineering side. Someone's coming from business, like myself. None of them are starting in the same place. And there's no reason you have to start in the same place either. So find a resource you like. It can be a course, it could be a project, it could be, Kaggle. There's plenty of great resources out there, but just get started and start working on some of the projects that you're interested in solving. Start answering questions that you couldn't without data. And that's how you build out this knowledge base. People also think that they can only learn from one resource. Oh, I took DataQuest or I took 365 Data Science. I'm not going to learn any other resources. That's the complete wrong way to look at it. You should be saying, oh, I learned this. Now I'm going to reinforce this with some YouTube videos or even another course or whatever that may be, or all these projects. All of this learning is additive, right? People think that there's an opportunity cost of doing one from the other, but I think that if you're learning from multiple resources, there's additional levels of nuance and understanding that you wouldn't get from just one. More learning, more different resources, better understanding, it's never a bad thing in this field. So if you're like, oh, which one should I take? Which course should I take? Where should I start? Start with something. You can always learn the other resource later. There's no harm in doing that. It'll probably be better for you in the long run anyway.
And like you said, it's a constant journey. It goes beyond 66 days.
It
66
never
days
ends,
is
yes.
just a start. My
Yeah.
final question, and this is a burning question that I wanted to ask: why do you have 4 clocks in your background near your desk?
So my normal work is mostly in Eastern time. I used to live in Central time. I have quite a few friends now in Pacific Standard Time. You're talking to me from India, correct?
Yes.
Shannon is in Thailand. I have a couple of friends, Danny Ma, Daniel Burke in Australia. So I'm working through all these different time zones, and I have all these meetings, and I'm trying not to miss any of them. So it's a lot easier. I guess people can't really see it, but I've written what time zone is on each of the different clocks. So I'm doing my best. You know, I hate being late. Also, I like being a timely person, and if I know what time it is in all these different places from just one glance, and I also kind of like the aesthetic. It's nice for me to look at too.
Okay, mystery solved. Ken, before we end the interview, what would be the best platforms for the audience to connect with you
I'll
apart
give
from
just
your?
a quick visual of the clocks too, in case people didn't know what we're talking about. So.
Gotcha.
So the best place to always reach me is on YouTube. So as we mentioned before, I try to respond to almost all of my comments there. I'm also available on LinkedIn and Twitter at @kenjee_ds. I also do some writing for Medium, and I think it's just, you can Google my name, Kenneth G. Medium, in the Google search there. Most of those blog articles are just, rehashing a lot of my YouTube videos. But if you like reading, overhearing my voice, I perfectly accept that. Those are the best places to reach me.
For the lazy people, these links will also be there in the show notes. Please feel free to click on them. Ken, thanks again for your time, and thank you for all of your content that you've been creating for the community.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your content as well. I can't wait to watch this.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give it a review or feel free to shoot me a message. You can find all of the social media links in the description. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.